The United States Navy has 11 aircraft carriers, and collectively, they serve about 93,000 meals every single day. Today, not only we're going to show you how this impossible task is done, but also how much all this food costs, who eats the best meal in the Navy, and how the logistics are managed. But why having steak and lobster with a side of ice cream could mean bad news for the sailors, and what they complain about the most when it comes to their food is not what you think. A good ship starts with good food, or chow as they call it. Inside the kitchen, known as galley, the daily operations are performed by sailors known as culinary specialists. These sailors have undergone multiple weeks of culinary training and are directly responsible for the quality and safety of all the food that's prepared on board. But culinary specialists are not the ones who decide what's on the menu today, for two good reasons. The United States Navy has over 300,000 sailors who are stationed among hundreds of different ships all over the world. And if you've ever hosted a big party, you would appreciate the complexities involved in feeding hundreds of thousands of people every day. So to simplify this logistical nightmare, the Navy uses a 21-day cycle menu. Basically, no matter where sailors are, on an aircraft carrier in the Pacific or on a destroyer in the Atlantic, if chicken wings is on the menu for tonight, it's gonna be a global wing fest at sea. This global menu is in fact the primary driver behind the Navy buying and delivering food worldwide. But the 21-day cycle menu accomplishes one more thing. The Department of Defense wants to ensure that sailors receive sufficient amounts of nutrients every day to optimize their cognitive and physical performance. So they publish nutritional guidelines that are in turn used to create this menu. With that said, the culinary specialists aboard the ships are allowed to inject some creativity into the meals, as long as they don't make drastic changes. But during holidays, all bets are off. On Thanksgiving, USS Ford may be serving turkey, while USS Nimitz has steak and lobster on the menu. But this brings us to an important point. One serving of steak and lobster costs about $25. A whole turkey that feeds at least 6 people costs the same amount. So how is USS Nimitz allowed to spend 6 times more money than USS Ford on a single holiday dinner? Don't worry. The Department of Defense has thought this through. The Basic Daily Food Allowance, or BDFA, is the amount of food required to feed one person per day, which is expressed as a dollar amount. Each branch of the United States military publishes a quarterly BDFA. Here's the Army's BDFA for December 2024. The amounts are calculated based on the costs of various food service providers that work with the military. In this example, on average, it costs $19.55 to feed one Army soldier stationed inside the continental United States per day, and $24.70 for those stationed anywhere else. When it comes to the Navy, each ship is allotted a daily budget, which is equal to the number of people on board multiplied by the current BDFA. So an aircraft carrier with 5,000 people on board and a BDFA of $22 will have a budget of $110,000 for that day. This process repeats every day of the year to make up the annual food budget for each ship. Each day when food items are consumed, they're deducted from the day's budget. At the end of the year, the goal is to have spent no more than the ship's budget, but also no less. This ensures that the crew have been fed properly. Now let's go back to that steak and lobster dinner. When a ship spends too much money on a particular meal, they would simply have to make up for it throughout the year. Corn for dinner, anyone? USS Ford has a crew of 2,500 sailors, plus another 2,500 who are members of the embarked air wing. These 5,000 people eat 3 times a day, requiring 15,000 meals per day. And given that the United States has 11 aircraft carriers, This adds up to 165,000 daily meals just for supercarriers. But that number is incorrect, because not all 11 aircraft carriers are deployed with a full air wing at all times. 3 ships are underway with full personnel. 4 ships are in unit-level training, which means the ship's crew of 2,500 are training, doing drills, and getting certified. But there is only a partial air wing of about 500 people on the ship. And the remaining 4 aircraft carriers are undergoing maintenance with a reduced crew of about 750 sailors. But there's usually an overlap for breakfast, because both the oncoming and offgoing duty sections would have breakfast each day. That all adds up to 93,000 meals served on the 11 aircraft carriers every day. I should note that there is also midrats, short for midnight rations, which are served around 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. But midrats are not considered a meal as far as accounting is concerned. Speaking of being concerned, we all go through times in our lives where it seems like we're stuck in a situation. Like, you don't think I'd like to take this YouTube channel to the next level? But every day I feel like I'm falling behind, and I know I'm not alone in this. That's why, in paid partnership with BetterHelp, we would like to present you a new path forward. 2025 is a fresh start for all of us, and BetterHelp can make it easier to get started with their convenient, fully online platform. Simply fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. All the therapists are licensed professionals with a wide range of specialties and backgrounds. And during video or voice calls, they can help you break down vague feelings like being behind into specific concerns, and then work with you to develop a personalized timeline that feels authentic to you, so you can measure your progress on your own terms. Plus, you can message your therapist at any time at no extra cost. And of course, if a therapist is not the right fit, you can easily switch therapists anytime free of charge. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5-star rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. So start fresh with BetterHelp any day of the year. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/NWYT and get 10% off your first month of therapy. The older Nimitz-class carriers have 5 galleys, while the Ford class has 2 conglomerate galleys. Each galley is equipped with various industrial equipment, which allow for preparing and cooking large volumes of food at once. These are steam kettles and can be used to make anything from soup to chicken. The way these work is that steam circulates under a jacket that covers the bottom of the kettle to distribute the heat evenly. These 60-gallon steam kettles are used to make the bulk of the food on aircraft carriers. There are also large griddles to fry vegetables or make delicious burgers. And when it comes to baking, there are industrial-sized ovens that can fit an entire pig, or could be used to make pizza. Dinner rolls are also quite popular among sailors. Now imagine rolling the dough into balls for 5,000 people. It can be very time-consuming, which is why some ships have an automatic roller. The culinary specialists just need to prep the dough and then place it inside this machine. This allows them to make hundreds of rolled doughs within just a few minutes. This equipment is certainly helpful, but let's not forget about the personnel who take care of all the prepping, cooking, cleaning, and much more. These personnel need to get up early every day because they could be starting lunch preparations at 4 a.m. and dinner prep work as early as 8 a.m. But not all food takes the same amount of time to prepare. For example, making soup is relatively simple, whether it's for 10 people in a small pot or for 1,000 people in massive 60-gallon steam kettles. But generally speaking, you need more cooks when serving a very large crowd. USS Ford has a total of 98 culinary specialists on board, and just the forward galley is run by 16 junior culinary specialists and 54 food service attendants. One of the biggest complaints of sailors is their food getting cold by the time they get to eat it. That's because the lineup of hungry people waiting to be served can be quite long. And even once they get their food, they may have to wait for a few minutes for an empty seat. While all the eating is happening, the galley crew is cleaning up and washing all the dishes in preparation for the next meal. The food service attendants have the most visible job, since they are the ones who help with the operation and maintenance of galleys and dining spaces. But at the top level, each ship has a food service officer or FSO, who's ultimately in charge of anything from planning to procurement and budget management. Reporting to the FSO is the leading culinary specialist, who provides overall management of galley operations and financial accountability. Then there is the galley supervisor, the watch captain, the records keeper, and the bulkroom custodian. The bulkroom custodian is the gatekeeper of all the supply on the ship. That includes anything inside the freezers, reefers, and dry storage rooms. Standardized recipe cards are used to determine the amounts of ingredients that the galley needs, and the custodian tracks everything that's issued out of the storage rooms. The bulkroom custodian also ensures compliance with health and safety regulations. That includes proper temperature control, and also making sure storage battens are installed where needed to prevent boxes from falling and creating a safety hazard when the ship rolls in rough seas. A critical part of this supply chain is delivering all the necessary supplies to the aircraft carriers. The resupply missions are done about once a week. When the supply ship meets up with the aircraft carrier, one way of delivering the goods is via helicopter. The Navy calls it VERTREP, short for vertical replenishment. Another approach is UNREP, or underway replenishment. That's when the two ships move side by side with a series of cables between them, where they essentially zipline the pallets over to the aircraft carrier. During UNREP, usually aviation fuel is also transferred over using big, thick hoses. The resupply mission can be done using VERTREP, UNREP, or both simultaneously, depending on the volume and types of supplies that are being delivered. On the aircraft carrier, the crew gets busy unpacking the pallets and routing them to wherever they need to go. There are especially made elevators inside the ship that facilitate the movement of ingredients and other supplies to the storage rooms. By the way, the most critical supply on any ship is water, and aircraft carriers essentially carry an unlimited water supply. This is thanks to the desalination systems on board the ship, which turn the ocean water into drinking water, so 5,000 people can drink and bathe daily, and tens of aircraft can be hosed down on board the ship. A few decades ago, if a sailor got steak and lobster on a non-holiday, it often came with a side of disappointment. A nice surprise dinner typically meant the deployment had been extended, and nice food was served as a morale booster to soften the blow. This was known as a bad news dinner. But these days, meals like steak are a regular feature on the menu. That said, desserts are still a bit of a luxury on any aircraft carrier, because they take up too much space inside the freezers. So they're typically only served on special occasions like the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Which means if you find yourself enjoying ice cream on an aircraft carrier on a random Tuesday, you may want to brace yourself for some bad news. Beer is another way to keep up morale. When a ship has been out to sea for 45 consecutive days and is not expected to make it back to port in the coming days, the commanding officer may choose to authorize a beer day. In this case, sailors get to officially enjoy 2 beers on the flight deck, and unofficially, maybe a couple more. But aside from this, the consumption of alcohol on board American naval ships has been prohibited since July 1st, 1914, just days before the start of World War I. Guess which type of warship serves the best food? Is it smaller ships like destroyers, larger amphibious assault ships, or the massive aircraft carriers? The answer is none, because the best food is served hundreds of feet underwater. Imagine life inside a submarine, a tight space where certain smells linger for a while. But jokes aside, spending weeks without seeing the sunlight can take a toll on the personnel. That's why enjoying the best food possible is a vital way for submariners to cope with the challenges of isolation. Inside most Navy dining areas, there's a small, empty table set for one. The POW MIA table, also known as the Missing Man table, is a powerful symbol of remembrance. An empty chair for the ones who are still missing. An inverted glass for those who can't join us. A slice of lemon to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured. And a pinch of salt for the tears shed by the waiting families. This may be a table for one, but in silence it speaks volumes and carries the hopes, tears, and prayers of an entire nation.